Okay, so it says we are live, and like I said, I just want to go and check to make sure that on Facebook,
Yeah,
this is truly a live
no
stream.
idea. So you should check.
So just getting refreshing my browser, and hopefully, let's see. No, I knew it was on lockdown, so I'm making it public now. Here we go. It is now public. So, hello everyone. I'm excited to be here today with my amazing friend and fellow entrepreneur, Annabelle Beckwith. You are in for a treat. She is amazing. She is someone that is a part of a team that I am a part of, the She Rises Studios collective leadership team. And after getting to know Annabelle for these last few months, I've really come to admire her as a person and what she does. And so I'm excited to have her on today. One of the things we're going to talk about is burnout, right? And burnout's especially how it affects women in business, because we wear a lot of hats. And it's really unbelievable to me still to know that over 75% of women have experienced burnout, and that over half of female entrepreneurs, this is another incredible statistic, say that burnout has made them consider giving up on entrepreneurship altogether. So, and if you have a team, I imagine this might be a very scary topic for you, because the health of your company is truly important. And it's why I advocate so highly for self-care as being the lifeblood to our success in life and business. Before we get started, I'm Leslie Gaudet. I'm a self-care coach. I want to just have you visualize something just for a moment. You know that focused yet calm feeling you experience when you've had a restful night's sleep and you wake refreshed, ready to take on the day's challenges with energy? Well, that's what I do. I help my clients who are female entrepreneurs prioritize self-care so they can feel that sense of joyful intention each morning as they confidently serve their clients and tackle their to-do lists. And that's important. And this, as I said, my lovely guest, Annabelle Beckwith, whom I will graciously hand over the mic to introduce herself to you. Annabelle?
Leslie, thank you so much for inviting me on today. I feel genuinely privileged to have been asked to join you and to share some thoughts on this crucial subject area. My name's Annabelle Beckwith. My company's called Yara Journeys Limited. I'm based in the UK, as you can probably tell from my accent, but work internationally. And my focus is on helping scale up entrepreneurs get the processes and the systems and the human processes and systems that their businesses need in order to build a platform for sustainable business growth. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love that. And she's good. I know I've never worked with Annabelle, but I know I can just tell she's just got this energy about her.
That's very kind.
So, yeah, so let's talk burnout, because I
Mhm.
think, as I said, this is what we were talking in the background before we went live, that I feel like it's become a normal conversation, that you probably can turn to the person to your right or to your left and maybe probably, you know, with the statistics, the numbers that are showing, probably someone directly affected by it. If not yourself, somebody who's gone through burnout, whether it's just the beginning stages of it, or someone who's all gone through a crisis burnout and syndrome, and they've ended up taking a leave of absence from work. I'm sure of it that we all have someone in our lives. I mean, I know most of the women that I've been talking to of late have a burnout story. So
Yeah.
let's start this conversation. What do you know about burnout, and how has it first, if it has been a part of your life, how did it first creep in up for you as a business owner?
Well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because it's almost like, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, it's almost like it's set as an expectation at the outset, isn't it? It's like, well, you're going to have to sacrifice your weekends. You'll have to do this. You'll have to do that. You'll be losing sleep. And it's easy to buy into that. And I think the first important thing to recognize is that that's not necessarily true. Yes, you'll have to make sacrifices for your business, but your sleep, your well-being, your health, your sanity do not have to be things that you throw under the bus. But I think we all kind of buy into that. And sometimes I think people will wear it as a badge of honor. I constantly see these comments online about, well, I get up at 6 o'clock, I get up at 5 and go for a run for 10 miles. I get up at 4 o'clock. And it's like, well, I don't sleep at all. And I don't eat anything either. I win. I mean, what is that? What is that about? But people tend to wear that as a badge of honor, and this is where it becomes dangerous. I've certainly got to a point, not now, thank goodness, but certainly within the last 2 to 3 years, where I was overwhelmed by stuff. And I tell you, it wasn't just work. It was things that were going on at home. It was things that were going on with my kids. It was everything. It was a combination. It was a perfect storm. Lots of things going on. And my personal experience was that sort of lying in bed one morning, and actually finding it difficult to function. Now, it's one of those things, Leslie, where it feels almost difficult to admit this, because it's not the persona that you would want to present on social media and alive, because we present ourselves as capable, as confident, and we're all of those things, but sometimes we go through these phases as well. So lying in bed and thinking, right, I'm going to get up. Right, I'm going to get up. I think I'm going to go to the kitchen and make a cup of tea. Walking down the stairs and think, right, okay, like find a tea bag. Find a cup, put the kettle, and literally doing like one thing at a time like that. And proceeding through the day in that way. And by lunchtime, I'm thinking, right, okay, I've kind of got a grip now. I can actually do something. But for me, that's what burnout represented, is actually finding it difficult to function and having to talk myself through the basic steps of getting up and getting dressed in the morning. Now, that's not something that I'm proud to admit, but I think it's probably a more common experience than people would care to admit. It's not happened often, thank goodness, but I know that, there might be times where I get to that point. And for me, the trick is to recognize, don't wait till I get to that point, but recognize where I'm getting to a point where things are starting to feel slightly out of control. And I know, right, now is the time where I need to start addressing it. Now is the time for self-care, rather than waiting until I can barely make a cup of tea before I step in to help myself. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. It's like that. It's
Am I
almost like
alone?
that slow motion. It's like that slow motion trying to get yourself to do something. I could even say, like, even having that alarm when you want to get up in the morning. I remember having my alarm at that point and then saying, okay, no, I'll get up a half an hour later. So I'll set it for later, and then I'll get up a half an hour later, and just kind of not wanting to get up, not wanting to do anything, because you just feel like you just don't have the energy. And it doesn't even mean that you haven't slept well. It just means other parts of your life it's just become so unbearable that now your body's starting to say, yeah, no, sorry, I just can't help you out today. And that's kind of like how I felt. So I completely can relate to that. So what were some of now I know you talked about that, but what were some of the early signs or symptoms for you? Were there any signs for you? Or do you think that it was just, it came up on you just like that?
No, well, this is the thing. Sometimes it can sneak up on us like a stealth bomber, and then suddenly we're in amongst it. But it's one of those things. It's like learning to recognize the signs. And for me, it's one of those things where it's almost like learning to recognize when I start to feel stressed and overwhelmed, where physically do I feel it? So I will start to feel like my jaw is clenching, or I will start to feel that people are asking me things. And it might just be, my son asking me for some, he wants me to swing by the shops and get him something for his tea. But it's like small things, and I feel a sense of resentment about that people are asking me to do things. And I know for myself that that's a key thing, because if I'm starting to go, goodness sake, clearly it's not an unreasonable request. If you're going past, could you just drop in and get? Of course I can. But where I'm starting to feel that small things, that I'm starting to perceive small things as unreasonable and big asks, that's when I think, right, okay, you need to just get a grip here and just retain a sense of perspective. And often what I find is if I'm quick-witted enough to do that and to be able to step back and take a deep breath, I will recognize that I am overcommitting myself in certain areas. And to go off at a slight tangent, but I think it's relevant. I think sometimes, I mean, as human beings, we tend to overcommit. I think as women, we often tend to overcommit because family ask us something, friends ask us something. There's work stuff there's clients. And we tend to go, oh yes, of course, I've got that, I've got you, I've got that, and then it comes to a point where it's like, do you know what? I've said I've got this, I've got that. I actually don't have any of it anymore, and I actually don't care anymore. I want to let go. So it's kind of recognizing, where am I starting to feel even the slightest resentment, in inverted commas, about something that I feel that I have to do. For me, that's a real signal, especially if that thing is something that's pretty, it's neither here nor there. And at that point, I know, right, okay, now's the time. I need to sit back and think, right, okay, why is this such a problem? And I often find it's because I'm overcommitted on things that are actually not really a priority, that I don't really have to do. So I need to reprioritize, and fundamentally, for myself, and I'm sure I'm not alone, learn to say no to things. Just learn to say no to things.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the.
We want to be liked. We want, I've got this. I'm a team player. I'm helpful. I'm a friend. I'm a mother. I'm this, that. Yes. Actually, no.
That no, that gets you into a lot of trouble. That no, I should say that yes, that gets you into a lot of trouble, where the no would support you. You said, I think you said something about what I really liked was not wanting to admit it. And the reason why I like it is because I think what happens is, because we're strong women, because we present ourselves having it all together, we're good at what we do when we're within those roles. But when we need help, or we need to say no, we need time for ourselves, it's really hard to admit if we don't have it all together, if we are, feeling some sort of way. And especially if we admit it out loud, like on social media, there's been some really brave women who have come forward on social media and posted saying, I'm taking time off, or I'm really feeling a certain way. I'm feeling burnt out, or I'm starting to feel like, doubtful. I'm having these doubts in my mind. I'm self-conscious. I'm not feeling good about my life, and they're being open and vulnerable. And I think that's amazing. But I also know equally that part of that is waiting till the last minute until it becomes so unbearable that now you're bearing your soul to the world to say, I'm just here. I just don't feel good about myself. Or some of the women I've talked to have just said, I'm actually taking a month off of social media, which is great. That's fine. Taking those time blocks for yourself and enjoying life is important. But I also think that when it becomes that, instead of something that you want to do, so to support yourself, it becomes something that you have to do. Right?
Yeah. Interesting. And it's interesting that that you say that people are saying, I'm taking a month off social media. You think, social media, eh? And I think it is one of those things where, I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things about social media, but there's also a lot of nonsense where, let's not believe for a moment, folks, that the life that somebody's presenting on social media is real life. And there is a propensity, is there not, to look at people and think, oh, they've got it all together, haven't they? Look at them, they're on holiday, or they're enjoying a glass of wine with some friends, or their partner's bought them this wonderful bunch of flowers. Oh, none of that's happening to me. But we only see what they're choosing to present to us. And I think it's also one of those things where somebody said this to me years ago, and it really struck me that when you're comparing yourself to other people, you are always comparing your inside to their presentation of their outside. And that's never going to be a fair comparison. And yet we fall into the trap, because it's part of the human experience, isn't it? We want to see where we are in terms of the notional hierarchy, whatever that may be in our own minds, in relation to other people. So it's, they're happier than me, they're more successful, they've done this. And we tend to look at other people as though they've got it figured out, and we, for whatever reason, haven't. And that's obviously not necessarily the case. And yet we can put ourselves under pressure from that perception. And that can contribute to burnout because we start to feel that we're not good enough. We start to feel as though we should be doing something else, as though we ought to be bigger or better or more than we actually are. So that's actually contributing to the burnout because we're feeling inadequate for whatever reasons. And it's all stuff. I mean, well, it's true. It's all stuff that's going on in our head.
Mm-hmm.
So, but being aware of that and capturing ourselves early on in that thinking process before it spirals out of control is really important, and to my mind, especially where social media is concerned, because it's so easy to look at everybody else's happy and wonderful lives,
Mm-hmm. It
and
sure is.
begin to believe that they're actually real,
Yeah, exactly. And you
and
don't
then to
even know the
judge ourselves
backstory.
by
Yeah,
comparison to that.
exactly. And our lives shouldn't be compared to anyone else's because,
No,
we should enjoy our life the way it is. I
no,
mean,
absolutely.
obviously, if you want to make changes, that's great, but do it for you, not because someone else's their life looks better. So you
Yeah,
want to,
absolutely,
catch up
absolutely.
to them. So, what do you think then? Let's talk about women in business specifically. What do you think are some of the unique causes or pressures that contribute to burnout for women in business, especially if you have teams?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think women seem to put themselves under more pressure to be perfect at everything. And statistically, the burden of childcare and work within the home and so forth tends to typically fall with the woman. Now, I'm not saying that men don't pull their weight or anything like that, far from it. But statistically, women do carry the bulk of that. And I think sometimes we put ourselves under pressure to be perfect, and actually this is perpetuated in everything that we see around us.
Mhm.
It's like children that are beautifully turned out and well fed and eating healthy foods as well and macrobiotic, blah blah blah, whatever. And it's like, do you know what, my kids were lucky if they got toast for breakfast and were shoved out of the door to get the school bus back in the day. They've survived, they're in their 20s, they're doing really well, happy days. But there's a pressure to be the perfect parent, the perfect hostess, to be absolutely on it with regard to the workplace, to have an immaculate home. And I struggled with this for a long time, because while I was working, I was feeling guilty that I wasn't spending time with my kids when they were smaller, or the house wasn't particularly tidy, or whatever. But when I was tidying the house, I felt guilty that, I've still got work to do and so on. So it's that, women can put themselves under a lot of pressure from that point of view. Statistically, women also tend to battle imposter syndrome more than men do, research has indicated. And so that puts us under, we put ourselves under additional pressure by thinking that we're not good enough, or that everyone else has it figured out apart from us, which is not true, by the way, not true at all. And so there are certain, I think, societal pressures which still exist, that are challenging, but there are also certain thinking processes that don't help us either. So these are things that it's almost like for individual women to like recognize yourself. Like, what is it for you? What is your limiting belief? And actually, before you even start to address that limiting belief, being able to articulate it and admit it to yourself is the biggest thing. It's like, I'm not perfect. I don't have the perfect home. I don't, whatever. It's like, well, nobody's perfect, but it's like being able to square up to who we are, and to accept and recognize and embrace the fact that whoever we are, that is enough. And to set our boundaries, well, if that's enough, that lies outside of enough. So that is a boundary. I'm saying no to that. Those are the beginnings of being able to manage this in the earlier stages of burnout appearing on the horizon, perhaps,
Yeah,
for
and
me.
the one thing too is like protecting our time. So,
Almost
like you were
definitely.
saying, if it is outside of something that we can do, especially if you have a lot of hats that you wear, if you're a mom, if you are a wife, if you are a business owner, if you have a team, maybe you're a caregiver for your
Yeah.
parents, maybe you do things within your community, there has to be time for you, number one. But you also have to be able to realistically look at your what you can actually do, that you're
Mm,
not pushing yourself beyond the limits. You're not meant to, like, as soon as you roll out of bed, that you're constantly go 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 until you put your head down to go to sleep,
mm,
because there's no quality of life there. It's finding that quality of life with by being able to intentionally have that structure around your day, the things that you do on a daily basis, having structure to your week, your business, what that looks like, having structure for your team. I truly believe that bringing in wellness into your team helps them to
oh,
function
yes,
better, right?
most
And that
definitely.
helps the entire business to function better. And then also being able to have that time where once you've done, you've finished, whatever work that you've done, and being satisfied with that because you have the clarity and the focus around it, what you needed to get done. And even if you didn't complete it all, not beat yourself up for it, so that
Yeah.
you can go and spend time with your family and not feel like you're missing out on those moments, and not feeling resentful for spending time with them, thinking that you have to get back to
Mm,
work. There has to be a balance. There has to, and that's why when I look at work-life balance that way, is it's not necessarily the amount of hours you work and the amount of hours you spend with your family. It's just, how are you structuring your time so that you are invested, where you have clarity, you can focus, you get more done efficiently, and you're satisfied, so that you can move, into your relationships and nurture those bonds, and even taking care of you, and
yeah.
not feel guilty if you're working, or resentful if you're not. And so I really feel like that's so important. So
Mm.
what are some self-care practices that, or things that you've done that have been helpful for you when if you feel burnout coming on, or just in general?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because just to jump back a little bit, when you're talking about self-care practices, and I think sometimes we're kind of fed this myth that that means having a bath with candles, or going to a spa, or getting our nails done. You think, do you know what, self-care? I live in the west coast of Scotland. I'm literally 300 yards from the beach here. So for me, self-care is just pottering along the beach looking um, for sea glass or shells, or or heart-shaped stones, because for me that's quite a therapeutic thing. I'm focused on looking for something in particular, and that's it. Or just doing something relatively straightforward. It doesn't have to be relatively high maintenance. So it's this: what is self-care for you? And also that self-care is not, and I think this is such an important factor, self-care is not self-indulgence. So it might be, and I love going like to a spa for a day and just relaxing and all of the rest of it, but it's not like, oh, that's what I've got to do. It's like taking time for you. And what you've just been saying there, Leslie, is making sure that you build it into your routine. Don't wait until you're about to lose the plot completely before you start to think, right, okay. So for me, things things changed significantly when I started to recognize that actually this wasn't about waiting till I'm almost at boiling point and then going for a long walk. It's about building in small daily practices, and like so many things, it's about doing small things consistently. That's what makes the difference. Not doing a huge thing once in a while. So a morning routine is really important to me. So for me, it's getting up in the morning and having some kombucha tea. Something that's good for gut health. I've been focused on gut health as well, just in the last several months, and how important that is. And spending time in the morning in meditation, in learning, making sure I get some exercise, and that's it. And do you know what? The irony is that back in the day, I'd wake up thinking, right, I've got to get on with it. I've got to straight, quickly coffee and toast, and then straight into the office, and then be sitting there at my laptop or my desk, going, right, what am I? Oh, I can't think of anything to. Whereas actually investing the time, and friends, I think it's at the point where you think, I don't have time for this, that's exactly when you need to make time for this, is to say, right, if I invest that time at the start of the day, getting my day off to the right start, I am so much more productive. more creative ideas occur to me. I get more done in the time. I'm more productive. I'm more focused because I have invested that time at the start of the day. And also, as you say, to factor in things like, right, I'm just going to spend some time with, my son still, he's in his 20s, but he's still lives with me, or I'm going to spend some time phoning my parents or with my partner or whatever, to factor that time in and to protect that time, because that is
Yeah.
important. And to make sure that when you're for me, when I'm diarising stuff that needs to be done, I'm not just thinking in terms of work. I'm thinking in terms of life admin. So I need to, not just I need to, I want to get out and do a bit of gardening because the weeds have been growing. I've been away for a few days. This sort of thing. But it's like factoring in stuff, so it's not just about work and being overwhelmed by life admin that grows and grows and grows, and suddenly you've got lots of tax returns, or the garden's a jungle, or the garage is a mess, or whatever. But factoring time in to address the whole of life, not just work, and critically to do small things consistently day by day, so that the whole of life becomes more measured. It's not this kind of boom or bust. I'm a boiling point and I'm calming down, and then I'm a boiling point. To manage it so that there's more equilibrium, basically.
Yeah, I love how you've worded that, and the ideas that you've talked about, like what self-care really looks like. It doesn't have to be the massages and the mani-pedis, where yes, of course, I love those things. I love to get my hair done, I love to do those things, but it's not those things I don't focus on as much as I do on taking care of myself through the day, like taking breaks. These are
Yes.
things that people don't recognize. They think, oh, well, that's not the glamorous side to it. But yeah, but these are the things that will sustain you. So to help you not enter into burnout, taking the breaks, learning to say no, asking for help,
Yeah.
having a hard stop, so that you can have that time to wind down at the end of your day. So with that being said, and just to wrap this up a little bit, with your experience around your own personal burnout, I'm just curious, like for you, if you would give a little bit of insight of what that looked like for you, as far as what you experienced, and what ways, if you could go back and help that previous version of yourself,
Mm.
how would you support her to help her through managing that burnout, prioritize self-care so that she wouldn't go down that path?
Mm. Okay, so for me, it would be two things. It would be actually three. Find a routine, a morning routine in particular. For me, find a morning routine that works for you, that sets you up in the right mindset and in a calm space for the day. And do not skip that. Might be tempting. Oh, I've got to do that. No, this first. And it's the old cliche. You have to look after yourself. The old thing about, when the oxygen masks, if they fall down, if they come down in the aircraft, you're advised to, put it on yourself, save yourself before you then attempt to help somebody else. You have to look after yourself. Otherwise, you're no use to yourself, to your family, to your business, to anything. So spend time in that self-care routine. The other thing that I would say to a former self is learn to say no. Have your boundaries and learn to say no, because it's all too easy to feel emotionally pressured or whatever to say yes, yes, yes. And if you're saying yes to something else, what are you saying no to? And yeah, that's a huge. Just learn to say no, and to set your boundaries, and to stick to them. And the third thing is to recognize that actually everybody goes through this. Everybody goes through this, and it's okay. It's okay, and so to let yourself off the hook, and don't allow yourself to be governed by expectations of other people. By the way, other people don't really care. They're too busy in their own little bubble. They're not looking at you. They really aren't. But with that point, as a case in point, so it's 8:30 in the evening here in the UK, and I've actually been working probably since about 10 o'clock this morning. So tomorrow I intend to start much later in the morning, have a bit of a lie in. Now, a past me would have said, "Oh, crumbs, if the neighbours see that the curtains are still drawn at 8:30 in the morning, what are they going to think?" They're not going to think. They don't care. They're busy with their own lives. But on the other hand, don't, stop worrying about what other people might think, and stop carrying the weight of what you imagine other people's expectations of you are. You have to be mindful of your own well-being and your own health, physical health and mental health. Because if you don't have those, you don't really have anything.
Yeah. I love that because I think it's so important.
Yes.
We do need to really take care of who we are as a person, especially just individually. Yes, we have all these hats we wear. We could be, I'm not a mom, but if we're mom, we're wife, we're CEO of our company, we're caregiver to our parents, we're a leader in our community, all of these different hats that we wear, that's great and everything. But when you focus on the self-care and you prioritize it for yourself, especially if you're a leader or a woman who's a leader in your company, it's going to help your team as well. Like I wanted to be able to focus back on that too, because when you think about this for your team, what's that's going to help is going to foster, you're going to model to them what, health is important, that self-care is important, that taking care of you should be a priority. And that shows them that you value them. So you're going to have a healthier, happier, more engaged team. It's going to promote that team building and the collaboration and the support from within. And it also can help reduce, the absenteeism or even turnover.
Yeah.
Right. Which means you're not doubling up on workload, especially if someone is away due to burnout related or even that stress related, something happens to them and they have to take a leave of absence for a given amount of time. You're also, because you're modeling what it looks like, you're equipping your employees with the tools to avoid burnout, to really embrace self-care, because wellness is an integral part of your standard operating procedures.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's going to reduce your need to find external replacements for, again, when I talk about that reduced absenteeism, if you have long-term absences related to burnout, stress, whatever that looks like, that can affect your company's bottom line, because you're now going to have to look for people to hire. You're going to have to double up your team members until you find someone, and then you're going to have to train them. That's time and money. So it's really important that you look at it. It's not just about an individual thing that self-care is about. It's especially if you're a woman in business. Oh, there goes my camera. It does that to me sometimes. I'm going to remove myself for a sec. I'll be right back.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. I thought I'm here on my own. But yeah, just to pick up on that point, yeah, I think, Leslie, you're absolutely right, because
I'm purple.
it's one of those things where you looking after your well-being is going to role model, exactly as you say, is going to role model to your team that it's okay for them to be mindful of their well-being. If you're saying, oh, look after yourself, but you're kind of burning the candle at both ends and in till some stupid hour in the middle of the night, people will follow what you do and not what you tell them to do. And it's also important as a leader to be tuned into the well-being of your team, and you'll know when somebody is maybe off kilter, not quite as centered as you might hope that they would. Ideally, because you're building a culture where people openly say, "Listen, I'm just having an off day, folks. I'm here, but I'm dealing with these issues outside. None of this nonsense about, well, we leave our problems at the door and then come into work. Oh, the heck we do. We're human beings, not automatons." But your people enough, and you've created an environment of trust where it's okay. It is okay to have those conversations. But the other thing is also that you recognize within your team, recognize changes in behavior. So if there's somebody who's habitually quite outgoing, quite chatty, and they suddenly seem a little bit reserved, they don't seem to be quite as joining in with jokes and stuff, that might indicate that something is not quite right with them. So that would be the point, just to double check with them and say, "Listen, is everything all right? I've noticed this. Is everything okay?" And give them an opportunity to go, "Yeah, it's fine. Or actually, no, I'm battling one or two things." Alternatively, it might be somebody who's normally quite reserved and calm, and suddenly they seem a little bit agitated about something. They seem a little bit kind of on edge or annoyed. It's right. Okay, something has unsettled this particular person. Do not wait in a team situation, in a business situation, do not wait until it's your results that are telling you that performance is dipping. Far too late at that point.
Yeah,
It's being
I
able
totally
to have
agree.
that culture and the communication within your team where these things are spotted as early as possible and headed off at the pass. And it's just as you say, Leslie, it's one of those things where it's not just the right thing to do because we're decent human beings.
Mhm.
It creates a more positive culture because people feel that they are valued. They are not just a cog in the
Absolutely.
wheel, get your job done and we don't really care. If people feel valued, they will leverage discretionary effort. That is good for your bottom line and it's good for productivity. So, and I think we've seen this since COVID in particular, that health and well-being is, thank goodness, increasingly seen as this is something that should be a pivotal part, an integral part of every business, of every leadership development program. This has to be part. It's not just one of those, oh, it's a nice to have, it's a touchy-feely, as long as they're doing a job, I don't care. No, people are recognizing at long last that actually somebody's state of mind, their physical health, the extent to which they feel valued, all contribute to the extent to which they feel motivated. And that in itself contributes to the effort that they put into their work and therefore the productivity of your business.
Yeah, I love that, and thank you, and I just had to put a comment in there, "Yes, I'm purple." My camera sometimes does this to me, but yes. And
Someone
that's
makes
okay.
me go yellow. I look like Bart. I'm the same colour as Bart Simpson. It's really quite disturbing.
Well, I'm really happy that you came on today. Thank you so much because I really feel like I wanted to point out that it's not just individually that we need to think about self-care, that if especially we're in business, not just as solopreneurs, but women who may have teams, that
Yeah.
it's important that you really adopt that wellness from within, a culture within your company to everyone takes care of themselves, not
Yeah.
only
And looks
personally,
out
but
for each other
professionally.
as well.
Exactly, and that's why I
Mhm.
was saying it really promotes that team building, that collaboration, that support from within. So,
It does.
thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate that you took the
Thank you,
time,
Leslie.
coming from all the way
Thank
from
you.
beautiful
Pleasure as
Scotland.
always.
Thank you so much, and I hope that
Indeed.
everyone who watched, or was watching it back, that you got value, and please, as I said, enjoy the purple.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Leslie. Thank you very
Okay.
much.